The House of Strings. The marionette came in a box shaped like a secret. White cardboard, ribbon tied clumsily, the kind of thin tissue paper that clings to everything it touches. On top, a card in blocky letters, "To Eli, make it dance. Love, Uncle Tom." Eli was 6, careful with bugs, fearless with stairs, the sort of child who tested the edge of every surface because edges were invitations. He tore the ribbon with ceremony and peeled the tissue back as if the paper might bruise. Inside, the puppet lay on a bed of straw shreds, limbs gathered, head turned slightly as if listening even before it could. Painted cheeks, a small red mouth, black hair in lacquered curls. The clothes, tiny waistcoat, tiny trousers, tiny shoes, were sewn with a competence that made you think of older hands and worse light. Above it, a wooden cross like a plus sign. From the cross, strings. "Is it old?" Maya asked. She was Eli's mother, 33, tired in the way that feels honorable, hair in a knot that promised the day was already making demands. She lifted the cross gingerly. The strings sang the quiet tune strings sing when they reintroduce themselves to gravity. "Or haunted," said Ben, Eli's father, who made mapping software and jokes, not always in that order. He leaned against the counter and raised both eyebrows to make light of the small shiver he felt when the puppet's head rolled to face him. "Hey there, little guy." "It's not a guy," Eli said, with the certainty children apply to nouns. "It's mine." He slipped his hands under the crossbar, small fingers curling around the wood, and stood, lifting the puppet into the kitchen air. The strings solved themselves, separate again, each a straight line from control to limb. The marionette hung obediently, knees bent, feet close together, head tilted. "Do you want to name them?" Maya asked. "Her," said Eli, as if there had never been any doubt. "Her name is Lark." Ben grinned. "Lark it is." "Make it walk, Bud," he added, and Eli tried, instinct meeting instrument. He tilted the cross left and the puppet's left foot kicked out, a clumsy, endearing gesture. He tilted right, the right foot followed. The first steps were wrong, as all first steps are, too slow, too thoughtful, too aware of her strings. Then the puppet found a rhythm that looked like she had invented walking by herself. The kitchen watched, as all kitchens do, a witness with tile and dust motes. "Bedtime," Maya said, though it was not yet. She wanted the new toy to become less new. "Tomorrow we'll clear a space in the living room. She can have a stage." "Now," Eli said, in the tone of a child asking the world to widen just one more inch. "Tomorrow," Maya repeated, soft and immovable. Eli carried Lark to his room, the cross in both hands like a tray bearing a candle. He laid her gently on his desk, strings gathered, knees at rest. He touched her little shoe, as if assuring her she was not being put away but tucked in. "Good night, Lark," he said. The puppet's head turned the slightest fraction on its thread-sprung neck. It could have been settling. It could have been listening. The next morning, the house woke the way houses do, appliances clearing their throats, the hallway deciding to be a hallway again, the bathroom mirror remembering all the faces it has learned and will pretend to forget. Eli ate cereal with the small gravity of children being watched. He lifted the spoon and a curl of milk fell on the table. He made a face of exaggerated contrition and wiped it with his palm. In the living room, Lark stood propped against the couch, strings gathered over the back. Her painted eyes looked past the coffee table, past a stack of magazines, to the television that was off. When Eli came in, Ben was already crouched on the rug laying out tape in a rectangle. "Stage," he said. "Main curtain there, wings here. Audience," he swung his arm toward the couch, full of parents who clap no matter what. Eli nodded and picked up the cross. The strings sighed. Lark lifted, limbs suspended, ready to be told her next thought. Show us a bow, Maya encouraged, sweeping the breakfast dishes into a sink she would ignore for a while in favor of clapping. Eli tilted the cross. Lark bowed. He tilted again. She bowed deeper. He grinned, inventing control. He raised his left hand, just for fun. Lark raised her left hand. Ben and Maya clapped out of sheer relief, that the trick worked, that the morning had not betrayed them. Eli waved his left hand again, side to side. Lark waved hers, the same rhythm, the same arc. Look at that, Maya breathed. Eli lifted both hands, a spontaneous tata. Lark lifted both hands, perfectly synced. Eli fidgeted, fingers flicking, small gestures a 6-year-old makes when he's trying to invent a drum. The puppet's fingers flicked too, the wooden digits clicking together like teeth. Ben laughed. She's got you, he said, and Eli laughed with him, joy pure, symmetrical. He lifted his right foot and stomped lightly. Lark stomped. Careful, Maya said to the rug and her son and whatever else listened. Eli lifted his foot again. Lark lifted hers a fraction before he did. Ben and Maya both saw it. The room did too. The air leaned, very slightly. Again, Ben said, lightly, and Eli obliged, lifting, stomping. Lark mirrored, tiny heel click on wood, perfect. Time to, Maya began, and Lark tilted her head to match the way Maya's head tilted when she said time to. Maya stopped. The puppet's head stopped too. Okay, Ben said, voice careful, happily casual. Okay. Eli was, for the first time, not looking at his hands but at Lark's small face. She likes me. Of course she does, Maya said, because fear behaves if you feed it with mother sentences. Eli lifted his arms again, slower this time. Lark lifted hers a heartbeat before his moved. He didn't notice. Ben did. Maya did. They looked at each other and practiced the great adult art of deciding what not to say. No one tells you how loudly strings speak when they're learning your house. By afternoon, they had insinuated themselves into choreography the way ivy insinuates itself into brick. In the kitchen, when Maya leaned in to reach the back of the top shelf, she felt something tugging at the angle of her elbow, a suggestion, not a pull. In his office, when Ben typed, there was a rhythm his fingers borrowed, a beat that was not his. Eli's footsteps down the hall began to land on certain boards without thinking, sounding a pattern that the hallway approved. Lark stood propped against a dining chair, as if watching, as if resting. Her strings draped like cobwebs that had learned intention. When the air moved, they did not sway. They hummed, a sound you don't hear so much as remember. Buddy? Ben called into the living room. Snack. Eli came running, stopped short at the threshold because the doorframe had something to say about entrances, then ran the last 3 steps with exaggerated care, because someone had once told him you shouldn't run in the kitchen and the kitchen enjoyed being obeyed. Apple? Maya offered. Can Lark have one? Eli asked, solemn. She doesn't eat, Maya said, and Lark's head tipped minutely toward the bowl, a child imitating curiosity with malice. Ben selected a Granny Smith with theatrical deliberation and quartered it. As he slid the plate toward his son, he noticed, with that small part of his brain that keeps track of the edges of a day, that his wrist moved in a path that felt taut rather than chosen. He shook it off. The apple pieces slid into neat sun rays with a precision he did not earn. Thank you, Eli said, and Lark's painted mouth almost seemed to shape the U, the corners of her lips painted so cleverly that the smallest change in shadow made them animate. Maya set the knife down. It rang in a way that suggested a tuning fork testing its note. Tom really outdid himself, Ben said, to have a sentence that was not "Are you seeing this?" Maya nodded and turned the knife so the blade faced away from the edge of the counter because that is what the women in her family did. Lark's hand lifted slightly, palm up, as if receiving an invisible handle. "Let's put her away for a bit," Maya said. "Can I show her my room?" Eli asked, already picking up the cross, already following some choreography that made the angle look right. "Sure," Ben said, because no would have had to be an argument and no one had the breath. They carried her down the hall. The strings brushed the family photos. In each frame, faces seemed an inch closer to the glass. In his room, Eli set Lark on the desk chair and turned her slightly toward the bed. The window light, soft, clean, honest, made the lacquer of her hair glow. Eli sat cross-legged on the comforter. "Do you want her to watch you sleep?" Maya asked, and did not add the "because I don't." "Not sleep," Eli said. "Just, be." The marionette's head tilted the smallest fraction in a motion that was not a nod and not a no. 5 minutes, Maya said to the room, to the clock, to the future. The strings hummed agreement. At dusk, when the house decides whether it will side with day or night, Maya came to the doorway of Eli's room and found him standing perfectly still. He was a boy of motion, always in the middle of a leap or a thought. Stillness was not his. When he held it, the room held its breath as well. "Buddy?" she asked, softly, the word a gentle knock on the air. He didn't answer. Lark sat on the chair, the cross propped against the desk, her strings pooled like clear water. Eli's arms were lifted, elbows a little bent, fingers curved. Lark's arms were lifted too, in the same shape. "Sweetheart?" Maya tried again. Eli's head turned toward her, slow enough to be a stage direction. His eyes focused, unfogged. "I'm practicing," he said. "What are you, practicing?" Maya asked. He considered, as if translating. "Staying," he said. "Like her." Maya glanced at the puppet. Its painted eyes looked past her shoulder now, toward the doorjamb, toward the hinges, toward the way the house allowed coming and going. "Dinner," Maya said, gently breaking the spell with the old maternal spellbook. "Wash hands." Eli lowered his arms. Lark's lowered a heartbeat after. In the bathroom, Eli turned the faucet, then stopped. He looked at his hands under the water, fingers apart, a shape that suggested he was waiting to be told when to move again. The stream made a soft convincing sound, the pitch water finds when it has something more important to learn. He began to wash, slow, precise, every gesture a small bow. From the hall, Ben called, "All surviving?" "All synchronized," Maya called back, meaning to be playful and hearing the wrong flavor in her own voice. At dinner, when Ben passed the salad bowl, his wrist dipped and turned and lifted at a rhythm the strings approved. The family ate in unison without knowing the word for what they were doing. And when, mid-meal, Eli scratched his left cheek with his index finger, Lark, left on the couch, worshipping the blank television, lifted her left hand and touched her painted cheek in the same place, slow, sweet. Ben and Maya did not speak of it. They were already matching the pace of their boy's next swallow. By Friday, the house had its choreography. The doorbell rang. Ben opened the door on its third chime, as if he'd been given his entrance. Maya poured coffee on the count of 2. Eli's feet hit each step in the staircase without looking, and if a stranger had watched they would have thought this was a family's ordinary rhythm. In the living room, Lark stood on the stage Ben had taped, and the tape had become a line the carpet remembered. If someone crossed it without the cross in their hands, their knee would catch, their ankle would protest. You could step into the space, you could not step through it with the efficiency of indifference. Eli spoke less when the puppet was up. He didn't need to, Lark's head turn said what he wanted. When he wanted juice, he tilted her chin toward the kitchen. When he wanted quiet, he lowered her hands until they were still in her lap. Once, when Maya raised her voice to be heard over the vacuum, Lark's little palm came up, not quite a stop, less aggressive, more judicial, and Maya lowered the volume, apologizing to the rug. That afternoon, Eli learned a new trick. He lifted the cross with his right hand, and with his left he began to copy small gestures, finger tapping, shoulder roll, the tiny muscular shift people make before they decide to speak. Lark copied him. He let his right hand fall. Lark kept moving, and Eli mirrored her. It was seamless, the transfer, the way two dancers pass a phrase back and forth and neither needs to own it to know it is theirs. Ben watched from the doorway with a smile that had gotten smaller every day. He lifted his own hand experimentally when Lark lifted hers. Maya, in the kitchen scrubbing a pan that did not require scrubbing, paused mid-scrub and held the pose because she recognized it from her son's new lexicon. Lark held it too. Eli did not notice he had taken 4 extra breaths to match them. "Let's take a break," Ben called, too bright. "Let's watch something not us." Eli looked at Lark. Lark looked at the television. Ben found himself grabbing the remote, pressing on at a moment that had already been chosen for him. The screen flickered to life. On it, a cartoon character waved with exaggerated joy, mirror to mirror in a house of screens. Lark waved back, slow, thoughtful, learning. They heard the strings at night, whispers on the stair, a sigh under the child's door, the hush of thread against wood saying shoo as the house turned over and made room for sleep. Maya woke at 3:11, a time that had no business being remembered. She lay on her back, listening. The sound was delicate, like the world had decided to be careful with its own weight. She turned her head toward Ben. He was awake, eyes open, the ceiling lording itself over them. "You hear it," she whispered. "Yes," he said. They lay still. In the next room, a breath matched a breath. On the other side of the wall, small footsteps and smaller ones both decided to align at the corner where floorboards tell each other jokes. "Do we take it away?" Maya asked, and the pronoun had gotten narrower every hour, it rather than her. Ben didn't answer, because yes would mean standing up and walking down the hall and that would unthread them from the safety of their bed's rectangle. And no would mean acknowledging he was letting a thing he didn't understand set the tempo of his house. In the end, they did what people always do with fear they think might be their own foolishness, they fell asleep, and the strings tucked their dreams in for them. Eli dreamed of a stage wider than his house, wider than his street, wider than the town, where his arms made circles and the stars moved to match, tiny obedient lights on long night strings. On Saturday morning, Maya reached for the coffee pot and poured not when she wanted, but when she should. Ben opened the cupboard at the precise beat that kept the mug under the stream without spilling. They did not speak to note the arrangement. They were busy performing. Eli stood Lark on the taped stage. He lifted the cross and then let his wrist go loose, trusting the strings to teach his fingers what to do. They did. The puppet shuffled forward with a dignity that made the hair rise at the base of Ben's neck. Eli followed the move half a breath later as if he had learned it in rehearsal. Maya felt her own head turn in the same arc, even while she dug the cereal box out from behind the oatmeal, and knew she had not chosen to make that motion. She stopped midway. The puppet stopped. Eli's face smoothed from a concentration she had not put there. "Enough," she said. It had the wrong cadence, a word pulled by a metronome. "Play," Eli said, sullen in a way he hadn't yet learned. His lower lip owned the room. Ben stepped between boy and puppet lightly. "Break time. Lark needs to rest." Lark lifted both hands, palms out, the gesture a referee uses when reminding men in uniforms that rules exist. Eli lifted both hands to match. Ben almost did too, then tucked them into his pockets like contraband. "Let's go outside," Maya said quickly, theatrical. "Trampoline. Sunday. That big, free-running sky thing." Eli hesitated, looking at Lark, waiting for permission from Wood and Line. The puppet's head tipped toward the window. Eli went. They bounced in the yard under a sky that never once looked at you to ask if it existed. Eli flew and landed, each jump beginning a fraction before he bent his knees. Ben and Maya watched from the steps. They found themselves inhaling when his feet left the mat and exhaling when he thudded safely back, all three hearts sinking to a rhythm the puppet had written and left humming in the air. By noon, the house had rescaled itself around the strings. Doors swung with measured delay to align with elbows. The hallway stretched by the length of a gesture. The kitchen table drew itself an inch closer to the living room stage. The bathroom mirror found the angle that would most often catch a glimpse of the puppet. Ben set his phone on the counter. It buzzed, a text from Uncle Tom, "How's the dancer?" Ben ignored it, for now. The question stung, the family name in the message sang with the wrong key. He flipped the phone face down. The puppet turned her face slightly, the way people do when they pretend not to listen and are listening. Eli wanted lunch at 12:03 exactly. He did not look at the clock. The strings announced it. Maya assembled a sandwich with surgeon precision, the knife gliding when it should glide, lifting when it should lift, without ever touching the plate at the wrong angle. "Isn't this good?" Ben asked, finally admitting a thought out loud. "Rhythm. Routine. He's calmer." Maya didn't answer. She hadn't known she was craving calm until the puppet offered it. Now she realized it came with currency. Your gestures returned to you with interest, but the bank owned the mortgage on your intentions. She set the plate in front of her son. Eli nodded once, the sort of nod that belongs on a stage. Maya, without meaning to, bowed minutely back. The puppet's head bowed too, a teacher pleased with the class. Sunday, the strings showed their teeth. It happened because of a tangle. Eli lifted the cross, gave the light little, ready, smile to no one in particular, and the strings snagged on the corner of the coffee table. One line looped the leg, another danced into a knot behind the puppet's knee. Eli giggled, the innocent giggle of someone who trusts tangles because adults exist. Maya reached to unhook the line. The string flicked at her finger, a small sting that felt like static and attention. She drew back, surprised. "Here," Ben said, and tried. The string slid away from his pinch and wound itself twice around the leg. Lark's head turned to watch his hands. Eli frowned. "Don't hurt her." "I'm not," Ben said, breath shallow. Maya grabbed a pair of scissors from the drawer. The metal felt heavier than it should, the hinge groaned. She took one string between the blades and paused, ridiculous, ceremonious. "We'll retie it," she said, for herself as much as for anyone else. She closed the blades. They did not close. The string between them held them apart. The seam of the blades bit and did not cut. Maya tightened her grip and felt the handles resist as if she were trying to force a door that belonged to someone else. The puppet turned its head toward her. Slowly, gently, it lifted its left hand. Eli's left hand went up in the same breath. Ben's left hand twitched, then steadied. Maya let the scissors fall open. Her fingers remembered to be hers. She set them down. "Let me," Eli said softly, and worked the tangle with 6-year-old concentration. The string released itself as if pleased to demonstrate docility. He lifted the cross and Lark bowed, to the scissors, to Maya, to the act of attempting a cut and failing. The house exhaled as one thing. Maya closed the drawer without a sound. In the reflection on the microwave door, her shoulders aligned with the puppets as if they had been rehearsing together for longer than she remembered. Uncle Tom texted again on Sunday afternoon, "Show me a spin, maestro." Ben typed later and deleted it, typed soon and deleted it, let the message stay black and unanswered. He had grown, the last 2 days, an intolerance for anyone not inside the house who believed they were owed a performance. Maya felt it too, the walls had become sympathetic, tuned to the family's shared breath. Even the cat, who for years had disdained any music but his own, walked the exact path between their legs, a perfect figure eight that repeated and repeated, a furry metronome. At 4, Eli lifted Lark and said, "Watch." They had no choice. The stage had been expecting this. He began with a bow. She bowed the fraction before. He stepped forward. She did. He stopped. She slowed to let him sink, then paused. It was like watching two mirrors decide which one was the original. Then he lifted her left arm and did not match it. He waited. She raised her right. Eli raised his right. Lark lowered hers. Eli lowered his. Their small heads turned to the left together, as if listening to instructions only they could hear. Ben, without meaning to, found his knees beginning to bend with theirs. Maya felt her wrist angle to a baton she did not hold. "Eli," she said, calling him back. He did not turn. "Eli," Ben said, sharper. Lark turned her face toward them both. The painted mouth did not smile. It sympathized. The music started then, not from speakers, not from outside. The house played it, the dryer drum at the edge of balance, the pipes deciding to settle, the wind fingering the eaves like a harp. A tune without notes. A measure made of the sounds things make when they don't know they are making music. Lark lifted her arms. Eli copied. Ben and Maya, above resistance and below consent, matched. Their shoulders aligned, their fingers curled, their chins tipped down. The house danced. It would have been beautiful if it hadn't been a theft. That night, after Eli slept, arms on top of the covers, fingers curved into the puppet's small shape, Maya called Tom. She stepped onto the back porch because the kitchen listened too closely now. She left the door open a fraction, as if to prove the phone call was not a secret. Tom answered on the second ring. "Hey, sis. You sent us a puppet," she said. She meant to be light. The words came out flat. "I did," Tom said, already contrite, and that made her angrier. "He likes theater, right? You posted that video from the school thing." He had. "I thought he'd." "It moves," Maya said. "Well, yeah," Tom said, relieved to be on familiar foolish ground. "That's the point." "It moves when he doesn't," Maya said, and tried to make it a joke and failed. Tom said nothing for a long breath. "It came from a woman at the shop," he said finally. "Old. Sweet. The place with the clocks and the strings?" Maya supplied. "I don't know," Tom said, much too quick. "She said it was good for attention. She said kids focus better if their hands are busy." I didn't think." "You didn't," Maya said, and the wind lifted a leaf on the porch and turned it twice as if to count to something. "I'll come by tomorrow," Tom said. "I'll take it back. He'll be mad, but he'll forgive me after I get him that dinosaur kit." "We'll come early," Maya said, and the porch light flickered, an old bulb practicing dying. Inside, in the living room, the puppet sat on the couch, facing the doorway in a way that suggested it had known to face it. The strings hummed approval of plans. Tom arrived at 8:07 with a cardboard box and the face of a man who knows he has to be the bad guy and hates that he deserves the title. He stepped into the kitchen and lifted his hands to surrender to the house. The house, unimpressed, let him be. "Where is," he began. "In there," Maya said, pointing to the living room stage. Tom stepped into the doorway. He saw the taped rectangle. He saw the puppet standing in the center of it. He laughed, softly, the way guilty men do when they meet something they did not mean to summon. "Hey, Lark," he said, because he had read the text chain and learned her name. He bent to pick her up. His fingers stopped an inch from the cross, as if the air between wood and skin had hardened, a pain he had no right to push through. "Huh," he said lightly. "What's her secret word?" "Eli," Maya said, "get your uncle." Eli came in with the solemn joy only a 6-year-old can pull off. He placed his palms on the cross like a priest and lifted the puppet. He turned her to look at Tom. "Sweet puppet," Tom said, genuinely. "Hey, kid, what if we let her live at my place for a while? She'll like the cats." Lark's head turned to study Tom's mouth, reading the cadence of his lie. Eli's head did the same. "No," Eli said, as if you were saying the sky is or the floor is, not choosing, but obeying. "We were just," Tom began, and stopped. Lark raised her right hand, palm out. Tom's right hand lifted to match without his consent. He froze, a man surprised by his own obedience. "See?" Eli said to him, almost kind. "She's talking." "Buddy," Ben tried, stepping in, "maybe just a day." "We'll." Lark turned her face to Ben and tipped her chin down, slow, pitying. He closed his mouth, discovering he had stepped on his own line. Maya picked up the scissors. The puppet's head lifted a fraction. The strings went quiet as dust. "Don't," Eli said, softly. Maya didn't look at him. She took the string attached to Lark's left wrist between the blades. The metal met the line with a sound like a whisper swallowing itself. She closed the scissors. They cut. The string fell, and with it the balance of the room. The house lurched, not physically, not in a way an insurance adjuster would recognize. Atmosphere tilted. The air laid a hand on everyone's shoulders, hard. Lark's left arm dropped, loose as something asleep. Eli wobbled. His left arm fell to his side, loose as something asleep. Ben reached to steady him, Tom did too. Both men's left arms refused to lift. For a second, one poised, distinct second, four people in a room were misjointed marionettes, strings mismatched, impulse and limb arguing. Maya stepped backward hard enough to hit the bookshelf with her heel. The jolt did something the strings did not account for. The house hiccuped. The puppet's head snapped toward her, painted eyes accusing, Eli's head followed, Ben and Tom's spines registered being ignored and straightened in unison. Maya dropped the scissors. "Okay," Tom said, voice high, hands up, the joke gone. "Okay. Okay. Fix it," Eli whispered, and the whisper broke something in Maya that had been useful and replaced it with a mother's old weapon. She lifted the string from the floor with shaking fingers. She tied it to the cross, clumsy, the knot ugly. The line pulled tight of its own accord. Lark's arm lifted, resumed its place. Eli's arm found his shoulder again and remembered what it was for. "Okay," Tom repeated, a different word this time. "Okay. Get your box," Maya said. "We're having a show." You learn, when a thing decides to keep your house, to offer it a ceremony it will accept. They made the living room a theater. Ben moved the couch back as far as the taped line permitted. Maya drew the curtains and left a slit at the center for light to guess at. Tom sat in the audience of one, box on his lap like a child who has been punished with responsibility. Eli stood on the tape, cross in both hands. Lark hung at ease, as if expecting applause. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ben said, voice steady because he had decided to pretend it was. "Presenting, Lark and the family." Maya felt her shoulders soften into their marks. Tom's head tilted into the angle he used when he wanted to be forgiven. Eli smiled the smile the puppet had taught him. Lark bowed. And the house began to move. It started as a joke, the kind of thing you'd tell your friends later. We went all in, really leaned into it. The family lifted arms on cue. Lark lifted first, then boy, then parents, then the uncle, all on one elastic breath. They turned, they stepped, they bowed. The television's black screen reflected them, 5 bodies and a 6th smaller carried between hands as if without the hands she ran the rest. The reflection's timing was off by a full heartbeat, and that was when Tom began to cry, quiet, old man tears that etch and do not announce. The house, pleased, splayed its strings wider. The kitchen door rocked open and back, the clock in the hall ticked double time, the distant faucet in the laundry room shivered to tune. "Tom," Maya said, mid-motion, voice calm in a way she did not feel, "when we lower our hands, put the box under them." "Okay," he said, a child again. Eli frowned at her. Lark turned her head. Ben looked at his wife and saw a plan and decided to put his weight on it because it was either that or lay down under the strings. 1, 2, 3, hands up. 1, 2, down. Tom slid the box under the fall of their hands. Lark descended into it, light as faith. Eli's wrists flexed, resisting, then released because his parents' wrists taught his the motion and he could not help but learn. The puppet settled into the tissue like a secret coming back to bed. The strings fell across the lid. "Now," Maya said, and Ben and Tom lowered the lid. The house protested with a sound like 100 tiny lines tightening. The lid met the box with a soft, decisive snick. "Hold," Ben said, and they did, all 4 sets of hands, as if the box contained not wood and thread but weather. "Buddy," Maya said, eyes on Eli, voice a train track laid straight into his chest, "let go." He did not. His hands were stone on the cross. "Eli," Ben said, softer. "Let go." The puppet lifted her head inside the box, no one could see it, but everyone could feel the tilt. The lid quivered under their fingers. The house pulled at their elbows, nagged at their shoulders. "Lark," Eli whispered, and the whisper was a goodbye and an order and a name. He opened his hands. The cross slid free. The strings went slack. The air let go of their joints like a mother who realized she had been holding a toddler's wrist too long. Maya and Ben and Tom pressed the lid flat. Maya pulled the ribbon around the cardboard, quick and sure, the bow ugly, the knot honest. Tom lifted the box, light as an apology. The house stopped dancing. The silence that followed had weight, yes, but it had edges too. Edges meant rooms. Rooms meant doors. Doors meant choice. Eli held his arms out to his sides, testing. They were his again. He flexed his fingers and they obeyed him on his commands, not on account. "You okay?" Ben asked, and he meant the boy, the room, himself. Eli nodded. He looked at the box and did not reach for it. Maya, not trusting her vision, watched his shoulder, the way the strings had liked it, and saw no pull. Tom cleared his throat. "I'll take her," he said. "You'll take it," Maya corrected, more tender than she meant to be. Tom hugged the box to his chest like a child who had been told to carry an egg and knows how eggs punish carelessness. He walked to the door. The door opened as a door should, when he pushed. He turned back. He began, and then found he had no future tense that would forgive what he had brought and what he would now remove. He settled on, "I love you," and left, which is a kind of sentence with a period the house approved. That night, the house breathed, but it was the old breathing again, familiar, pipes and wind, the cat purring against the kind of silence that suggests trust, not rehearsal. Ben sat on the couch with the remote and did not turn the television on. He held it like a prop he might put away forever without grieving it. Maya laid her head on his shoulder, and they felt their own breathing return to not quite unison, which is where love lives, close, but not kept. Eli slept with his arms curved gently over nothing. In the morning, he stood on the taped stage and looked at the rectangle without the small figure in it. He lifted his hand, slowly. No head turned first. He kept lifting, then lowered, then lifted again, inventing his own rhythm. The house watched, as all houses do, and approved. At noon, a text from Tom, delivered. Lady at the shop said, "Good return, no refund. Feels right." Ben typed, "Thank you," and meant it more than he had ever meant that sentence to his brother. Maya peeled the tape off the carpet. The line came up reluctantly, like a boundary that had been useful. She folded the strip in on itself, adhesive to adhesive, and when she threw it away her fingers did not stick to the bin. That afternoon, when Eli walked down the hallway, he stepped on different boards. Not random. Chosen. At dusk, the house decided to side with night. The mirrors kept their faces to themselves. The scissors in the drawer lay quiet. And somewhere, in a shop with clocks and dust and a woman who quoted policies like scripture, a white box sat on a shelf made for boxes, and in it a puppet lay on tissue paper, strings coiled like sleeping snakes. When the shop was empty, the strings hummed under their breath, remembering. That would have been the end if endings kept to tape marks. At 3:11 a.m., when houses admit they are homes and not stage sets, Maya woke. She lay listening. The silence felt true. She smiled into her pillow and closed her eyes. From Eli's room came a sound so small it could have been a dream. Not string. Not footstep. Breath, matched to breath. She stood. She went to his door. She opened it and found him asleep, arms curved gently over nothing, face loose, unposed. On the desk chair, the absence of a puppet. In the window, the curtain stirred, though the window was closed. She stepped into the room. The floor was the floor. The air was the air. She went to the chair and turned it slightly, silly, as if angling a piece of furniture could redirect fate's attention. Behind her, on the wall above the bed, a hairline crack traced itself with shy speed from corner to corner. It made a plus sign. It made a cross. It made nothing, unless you had learned to read strings. Maya put her hand flat on it and felt, faintly, a hum, like a tuning fork remembering a note. She lowered her hand. "Not here," she whispered. The hum stopped. She went back to bed and slept the rest of the night with her body in her own charge. In the morning, Eli stood in the hall and turned his head to the right, thoughtful. No one turned theirs first. He grinned. He did it again, for pleasure. Ben opened the cupboard and poured coffee a beat late on purpose, then laughed, because he had cheated nothing, only reminded himself where his rhythms belonged. The house wanted to dance. Houses always do. This one had learned its steps and would never forget them. But now, when it danced, it waited for the family's count. The tape was gone. The stage remained, as all stages do, in the air. Sometimes, at dusk, Eli lifts his hand and holds it very still. He waits to see if anything lifts before him. Sometimes the air hums, small, polite. He lowers his hand anyway. He is learning to stay. The strings in the house are learning to be quiet. That is all we can ask for, until someone opens a white box somewhere, ties a ribbon, writes a card in blocky letters, make it dance, and teaches a new house the difference between rhythm and rule. Uncle Tom's truck ticked as it cooled in the curbside shade. The street smelled like afternoon and wet cardboard. He carried the white box into the horologist's daughter, the kind of shop that looks closed even when it isn't, windows dim with old polish, doorbell chirping with embarrassment, 1,000 small faces behind glass measuring your hesitation in seconds. Back in a voice called, then appeared, a woman shaped like a careful thought. Silver hair braided, apron with needle pricks that had learned not to bleed. Her eyes did not so much look at Tom as place him on a shelf where he belonged. "I have a return," he said, feeling 9. She set her pincushion on the counter, weighed the word. "Good?" she asked. "My sister says so," he said, because the opposite sounded like superstition. She nodded as if he had answered correctly on a test he hadn't studied for. "Good return," she echoed, and turned her palm up. He handed the box over. The bow, ugly but honest, pleased her. She untied it in a single economical motion and lifted the lid as if letting a trapped thing breathe. Inside, Lark lay with her eyes closed, a trick of paint and lid. The strings coiled with the memory of air. The shop breathed out, like an organ that had been waiting to exhale. "Did she," Tom began, and stopped because he didn't know the verb that would be both literal and unafraid. "Learn your house," the woman supplied. She smiled, not unkind. "They always do." "They." The woman corrected. "That one listens." Her hand hovered over the cross, stopped, then reached past it and touched the tissue, as if not to presume control. "We do not sell her," she added, more to the air than to him. "You sold her to me," Tom protested, grateful for the work of a normal argument. "I let you borrow her name," the woman said, and her tone made the plank floor more floor. "You brought it back. Good. Most don't." Tom blinked. "There are others." "In other rooms," the woman said. "Other houses. Other hands. But that one is older. She comes home when she's learned a new step." She looked up, gaze quick. "She did?" Tom thought of the living room bow, the box under the falling hands, the way the house let go like a mother unclenching a toddler's wrist. He nodded. "She did." The woman tied the ribbon again with a knot that would not come apart unless a hand knew how to ask. "Tell your sister she is in credit," she said, and slid the box toward the back. "For what?" Tom asked, because a ledger with the name of someone he loved written in it made his stomach cold. "For before," the woman said. "For when a string asks for you and you remember the count you set for yourself. For closing a curtain someone else opened." Tom rubbed his palms on his jeans like a boy with sap on his hands. "Would you," he gestured at the tightly held world of clocks. "Would you tell me where she came from?" "From people who loved rhythm more than mercy," the woman said, with a shrug that absolved no one. "From a stage that lost its door. From a child who learned to stay so well that the staying turned into rules. We salvage what we can." Tom swallowed. "And the rest?" She tilted her head at him in a way that suggested the shop had once been a church and she remembered the architecture. "The rest keeps time," she said. "We are not rid of what we teach." A wall clock coughed. Somewhere in the back a bird cuckooed the hour too early and then apologized with silence. "Thank you," Tom said. "Be less generous next time," she said, and he left hoping it was only a joke. Back home, Ben found the house standing still on purpose. That was the new luxury, stillness by choice. The rugs stayed rugs. The mirrors paid you the courtesy of returning your face when you asked for it, not when they wanted to practice. The cat forgot to be choreographer and remembered to be an anarchist. Yet the ledger remained, quiet but present, a book under a table leg keeping the wobble down. Instructions no longer bossed them. They offered, politely. The hum in the walls returned some evenings, like a neighbor playing violin with the window cracked. Maya bought a cork board and tried to make her own ledger. She pinned rules to it with innocent pushpins: supper together, phones down, tape away, stage outside only. She made a game of it with Eli: check marks, glitter star stickers for obeyed days. He loved it. He loved structure when it was his. He loved that sometimes he decided where the stars went. At 3:11 3 nights in a row, she woke. The house did not misbehave. A rhythm inside her did, counting, recounting. She learned to turn her head without moving her shoulders, testing the air for strings she could not see. Each dawn, relief came like a simple song. On the fourth night, she dreamed a different instrument: a knock. Not on the front door. On something inside the walls. She woke with the certainty that a person had asked permission to enter the house's body. She did not tell Ben. Some dreams need to see if they will recur before you name them. Eli asked more questions now, the right ones. What's the difference between rules and rhythms? Who decides when we start? Can you stop a song if it's in your head? Is the string part of her or her part of the string? They answered as well as they could. Rules hurt when you obey them without choosing. Rhythms help if you chose them before you started. We do. If we forget, we do again tomorrow. Yes. It takes practice. Your brain is not a jukebox you owe a quarter. All of it is all of it, Maya said, faking theology with a mother's confidence. In the afternoons, he built stages outside from chalk and hose, put on the role of conductor and waved. Birds obliged. Leaves agreed to fall on cue. The neighbor's dog barked right on too. He laughed, shocked that the world would play. Sometimes, when he reached to scratch his cheek, his hand paused halfway as if waiting for a signal that did not come. He lowered it. He raised it. He scratched on his own count. He would look at his mother to see if she had noticed. She had. She always cheered for the smallest victories. They bought a new puppet from a toy store that sold only toys. It had a ridiculous mustache and pants patterned with stars. It moved only when Eli did and only as well as his hands let it. It was dumb company. It was perfect. He named it Cricket. Cricket made no one dance without consent. The house, grateful for a prop whose strings did not lay claim to the rafters, let its ceilings be ceilings. Sometimes still, when the curtains breathed, the old hum shook out of them like dust. But it remained dust, not directive. A thing like this never stays in one house. Rhythm leaks. At the elementary school, the second grade learned a clap pattern they could not stop clapping, even at lunch. Not loud. Under the table. Palms and fingers, thighs and wood. Teachers chalked it up to tick-tock, to attention, to sugar. It stopped when the music teacher, a practical witch with good shoes, made them clap on the wrong beat for an hour. She called it syncopation. She taught them to carry that off-beat into the hallway. The sound in the building changed. Even the janitor noticed. He called it quieter. At the bakery, loaves rose in unexpected unison and then, the next day, refused. The baker, a woman who loved yeast like other people love nephews, stopped humming for a week and made the bread rise to silence. It obeyed. She did not know she had prevented a contagion. She only knew the crusts thanked her. At the stoplight on Main, pedestrians found themselves stepping off the curb at once. After 3 instances, the town muttered about something in the water, and then the city crew fixed a downed wire at the corner. The crossing beep went back to annoying instead of irresistible. The town was safe because someone's wrench was on the right notch. Still, on certain evenings, if you stood under the elm across from the horologist's daughter, you could hear, if you wanted, the tiniest creak of wrapped string as the shop adjusted its shelves to accommodate a world that had been reminded of line and pull. 2 weeks after the return, a plain envelope slid under the McKay's door. No stamp. No return. A single sheet inside, folded once. Thank you for the good return. We keep a ledger. You are in credit. If ever a stage opens where a door should be, call. HD. There was a number. It wasn't a number so much as a shape. A ring of digits that made no sense until you looked at them sideways and remembered an old country code, an old exchange, an old habit of lining 9 sevens up to build a wall. Ben taped it to the inside of the kitchen cabinet where they kept the spices. He didn't tell Eli it was there. He didn't tell Maya either, not because he kept secrets from her but because he knew she would check it the way people tap their pockets for keys. That night, Maya found it because she needed cumin. She tapped her finger on the paper twice, not superstitious, only rehearsing doing nothing for later. Would you? Ben asked from the table, no subject, all predicate. If, she said. And that was enough to make the room agree to continue being a kitchen. Autumn leaned in. Eli's class sang at family night. The gym's acoustics made thin praise of their sincerity. They weren't good. They were charming. That is what you want from children. In the fourth row, a toddler began to clap out of time. The whole room clapped with her after a measure because kindness is mimetic too and less hungry than fear. The principal laughed into the microphone. The microphone whined. The crowd stepped back from the whine at once. Ben felt a string catch at his shoulder. Maya's hand found his wrist. Eli, on stage, lifted his arms and put them down and the gym obeyed not in imitation, but in admiration. Look at the boy who knows when to stop. Afterward, in the cafeteria with paper cups and cookies and the blessed chaos of kids in dress shoes, Eli held cricket up for classmates who do not yet have vocabulary for jealousy and so are pure about it. The puppet moved the way a thing moves when it is loved but not let in. Parents smiled. Teachers sighed in a way that meant good, keep this simplicity, please, as long as you can. From the corner, a woman with silver hair and a braided crown nodded once and left before anyone could ask her name. Maya saw her and did not say she had. Ben did not see her and would dream of clocks anyway. It began with a splinter under the living room window. A tiny sliver of lacquer embedded itself in the sill, exactly where Lark's foot might have tapped if she had lifted her toe to bow there. Maya found it when she wiped. She picked it free. It clung to her fingertip, a color not modern paint, a gloss that hid 100 thin strokes of age. She stared at it and felt herself begin to fall into the 100 thin strokes, a hole in thought. She shook her hand. The splinter fell to the rug and disappeared, a dark syllable swallowed by a paragraph. She vacuumed that afternoon for the first time in a week. That night at 3:11, the knock came again, patient, the way a polite guest will not press the bell twice. It came not at the door, but at the wall between Eli's room and theirs. 3 beats. A pause. 3 beats. Not the rhythm of soldiers. The rhythm of a conductor testing an orchestra. Are you listening? Can you begin together? Maya sat up. Ben. He was already up, feet on the floor, eyes bright with the ache of being right too late. He went to the hall. He didn't turn the light on. At Eli's door, he paused. He listened. The knocking stopped the way a play ends when the lights come up early. He opened. Eli slept, arms curved, breath even. On the wall above the headboard, the fine cross-shaped crack had healed. Plaster was blank. The room was a room. Not here, Ben said, to whatever had learned English only in the imperative. Silence agreed. It is the best housemate when it's in the mood. Sometimes the world outside learns your house's lesson and applies for a job. Ben commuted twice a week into the city, the one with trains that heckle your sense of timing and elevators that make you practice patience. He got off at a station that had learned to count feet, the turnstiles breathed like sleepy lungs. On the third Wednesday, he noticed the crowd's shoulders step through the door to the street as a single shrug. Not a crush. A coincidence that wasn't. On the sidewalk, a busker pulled a violin out of a case that had never known enough money. She raised the bow. She waited too long. The crowd slowed, prepared to listen. She lowered it without playing. The crowd, embarrassed, speeded back up. She had conducted and the street obeyed. Ben put a bill in her case. "Who taught you?" he asked. "Who taught you to ask?" she replied, not unkind, and lifted the bow and played 3 notes that made him want to stop and cry. He did neither. He went to a meeting where men in shirts practiced moving their hands to graphs instead of to family. At lunch, in the lobby, there was a white box on a table next to the plant no one watered. Ribbon around it, ugly knot, familiar loop. His stomach went cold. He walked past. He did not open it. He did not call the number taped inside the cabinet at home. He did not mention it when he kissed Maya's hair that night in the kitchen while cumin breathed itself toward perfection. The box sat in the building mute and full for 4 days until a janitor, too tired for curiosity, put it in a bin marked donations, and the city did what cities do to stories, moved them to other shelves. The horologist's daughter cleaned her workbench at closing time, the ritual of trust she used to tell her tools to stop being vigilant. She made the sign you make over clocks you plan to let run without you, a gesture like smoothing linen on a bed you want to keep warm. A little bell rang at the back door, the one used by trades and ghosts. She opened it. No one. The alley performed its performance, rain sound, cat sound, a neon sign across the far way complaining. At her feet, a white box. She brought it in and set it on a stool older than her wrists. She untied the ribbon. She lifted the lid with a prayer that had no words in a language she had shared with anyone lately. Inside, not Lark. A different one, smaller, with an angular jaw and a tiny soldier's hat. His strings were newer, spun fitter. On the cross, a name written in a child's neat print, Gustav. She touched the tissue, not the wood. She nodded. Good return, she told the empty room, and the room bowed its rafters back. She lifted the soldier with both hands, gentle, practical. Not here, she told him. We know where you go. She hung him on a hook above the workbench where he could watch her. He did not move. He listened. She began to mend an old French clock that had been 37 seconds arrogant for weeks, and the soldier learned the difference between sound and command. The city slept. The town out beyond it learned to keep its elbows closer in the evening. The ledger filled with scratches no one would tally until winter. Halloween came. Strings love Halloween. Everyone lets themselves be puppet on purpose, if only in the mirror. Eli dressed as a conductor, because he is always honest about his desires and does not yet fear comedy. Cricket wore a cape with stars. Ben was a ghost, sheet with eye holes, correct weight, Maya a black cat, ears as apology for the claws she no longer extended. The neighborhood roamed under yellow trees with buckets and greed. On the porch of the old Glen house, a pair of twins in matching fox costumes worked a marionette with 2 crosses lashed together. It walked beautifully. It walked ahead of their hands. Maya put a mini chocolate bar in the twins' pillowcase sacks and smiled at their mother. The mother's eyes had that shine people have when they have learned too much too fast and are pretending they won't again. Nice control, Maya said. Thanks, the mother said weakly. Uncle found it somewhere. They love it. It's a phase. Everything is, Maya said. She wanted to say more. She didn't. You cannot run through your town unplugging other people's radios. At home, after porch lights dimmed and doorbells forgot their evening jobs, Eli dumped candy on the rug and sorted and counted, generous to a fault with trades. The house felt like a house in a storybook, warm, silly, full of wrappers and gratitude. At 9:03, a sudden hush walked the street. Not quiet. Hush. The kind children give when a teacher they admire lifts a hand. Ben and Maya looked at each other over the candy, over their son's joy, over the stage the world is, and decided that if they were called again, they would answer before the third knock. It was the twins. 3 days later, their mother stood on the McKay's porch with a cardboard box in her arms and the expression of someone who has tried being brave and would love to be allowed a trade-in. I heard, your sister's friend, she ventured, imprecision a kindness. We can help, Maya said. The box was smaller than Lark's. Inside, the puppet wore its fox's strings around its chest like a sash. The cross had a crack. The twins' mother's name was written under the stick in faded Sharpie, a reminder that names sink sometimes into the wood that carries them. Where did you get, Ben began. The clock shop, the woman said. Except it wasn't there. It was the antique mall down the block where they say not to touch. Of course it was, Maya said, pleasantly insane. They undid the sash. The puppet turned its head toward Eli because Eli is the kind of child puppets mistake for a prodigal. He didn't reach. He stepped back. Can we? The mother asked. Yes, Maya said. We can return. Do you know? Enough, Ben said. Eli took the ribbon out of his mother's hand like a page boy, like a surgeon's assistant, like a boy being allowed to touch a ceremony and told it's not his. He tied the knot ugly and honest. They drove all three together to the horologist's daughter. The braids were tighter that day. The shop bell sounded more like a doorbell at a house you are invited to. The woman nodded once, twice, took the box, tied it again, smiled at Eli like a colleague. Good return, she said. You are very much in credit. How much is credit? Eli asked, because he has learned that scores are kept even when people pretend they aren't. More than your age, the woman said. It does not spend the way you think. I have stars on a chart, he offered. Does that help? Very much, she said, and he walked out of the shop taller by a measurement no ruler could record. On the way home, the town's traffic lights blinked in a pattern that made sense even when they were red. The street listened for a baton that was not there and found instead a family walking without counting their steps. The world approves of that, when it remembers how. Winter. Strings love winter because windows close and music sounds like heat and planning feels like morality. At 3:11 a.m., the knock came and didn't stop. Ben sat up, ready. Maya stood already, as if she had never slept. Eli slept through 3 beats, a pause, 3 beats, and then turned his head toward the wall the way a sunflower turns toward a lamp. They didn't go into his room. They went to the hall with the cabinet where the spices lived. Maya opened the door. The paper with the number jumped as if startled. She pressed it flat with her palm and felt the cardboard behind it vibrate like a chest coughing. Now, Ben said. She dialed. It rang once. Then twice. The voice at the other end answered as if they had interrupted the ending of a song and it was a pleasure to be caught. This is the daughter. We have a knock that is not a door, Maya said. Neighborhood? The voice asked. Or house? House, Ben said. Hours. Hallway. Cracks have healed. Strings hum 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats. Your ledger is good, the voice said. You may tell it no. We have, Maya said. It wants to be told no in a different language. In the morning, the voice said, set chairs in a circle and sit in them. Do not look at any walls. Do not name any walls. Put a metronome in the center, a cheap one, a phone will do. Let it tick. Say we choose. Say it until you are bored. When you are bored, stand up all at once and clap once. Then make breakfast. That's all. Ben asked, incredulous and grateful. You're in credit, the voice said gently. It will leave on the first try. If we weren't? Maya asked. Then we would open, the voice said. And shut. And open less. And shut more. A pause that wasn't. You did good work with a box. Thank you, Maya said. Thank your boy, came the answer, and the line went polite. At dawn they set chairs. Eli giggled because family games are games until their rules save you, and then they become something else. Ben set the phone down with a ticking app. Maya resisted the urge to pick a perfect tempo and picked a wrong one and kept it wrong and did not correct. They sat. They said we choose until the boredom that is the opposite of fear arrived. On some count none of them owned, they stood and clapped. The house let out a breath none of them had heard it take in. They made pancakes. They did not flip all at once. You want an origin. You want a curse explained and its mechanism demystified. You want to know who carved her and why. Here is the truth the horologist's daughter would give you if she were in the mood to be ineffable with precision. Long ago, a troupe learned to love the control more than the crowd. They learned how to make attention an instrument and obedience an art. They made a lantern for darkness and a puppet for rooms and a rope for people and a line for days. They brought delight, and through delight, discipline, and through discipline, a machine. When they died, the troupe became tools. The tools kept working until better hands asked them to stop. The better hands were not pure. They were only tired of dancing when they didn't mean to. The daughter found some of these tools in a box under a city and some in a barn and some in a widow's sale where the widow knew the difference between casting off and calling back. She learned what to tie and what to burn. She learned how to call a family that had taught itself a rule that looked like mercy and was. Strings go where they are wanted. Strings stay where they are taken. Strings snap when the will on either end twists the wrong way too long. If you hear them, you are either in danger or being tuned. Tell your house we choose. Mean it. Clap once. Make breakfast. Call if the crack in the wall forms a cross. Put a chair where you want doors to be. Stand up when you want to sit. If you must return, tie the knot ugly. The knot is the part that convinces the room you mean it. Spring rehearsed outside the windows and then performed. The lawn forgot its old strings and invented blades like jokes. Eli grew the way children do, in bursts that steal socks and return appetite. Cricket lost a star on his pants, they sewed it back on crooked and called the crookedness proof of love. On an evening pink with peonies, the doorbell rang. The twins and their mother stood on the porch with cupcakes as thanks, frosting too large for the cake below. On the sidewalk, the woman from the shop pretended to read a poster about a yard sale, eyes on the horizon. She did not need to come in. She never did. She nodded when Maya's eyes found her and left with the grace of clocks that have set themselves. The twins asked to see the stage. Eli showed them chalk on concrete, tape on air, the space where a rectangle lives without persuading the furniture it belongs on the floor. They moved in it, silly. Their hands, for once, forgot to listen for strings and listened for laughter instead. Tom came by without a box. He sat and ate a cupcake and apologized to Eli again in a new way, by telling him he was proud of him. Eli accepted the apology in a new way, by showing him how to make Cricket bow badly. They laughed, priceless currency paid into a jar everyone gets to drink from. At dusk, without meaning to, Ben raised his hand. Maya's went up. Eli's followed. The twins' mother smiled, terrified for a second, her shoulders answering. The twins lifted theirs. The room waited. Ben lowered his hand. No one moved until they wanted to. The house did not clap. It did not need to. It had learned. Years from now, when Eli is 13 and too tall for certain forgivenesses, he will go into the cabinet over the stove for cumin and find the paper with the number curled at the corner like a leaf. He will smooth it. He will put it back. He will not call. At 19, in a dormitory where the heir does not know the family's name, he will wake at 3:11 and hear 3 knocks in a radiator, a pause, 3 taps in the next room's headboard. He will sit up. He will say we choose and clap once, low, so as not to wake the roommate who did not earn this superstition. The radiator will resume being old. He will make instant coffee in a cup that says do it again and smile because he no longer obeys everything printed. At 30, with a child of his own holding a ridiculous mustached puppet whose pants have lost a star twice, he will visit a town with a shop that looks closed even when it isn't. He will stand under the sign, hand on his child's shoulder, and decide not to go in. He will walk past. He will clasp his partner's fingers and they will not, between them, begin a dance they didn't discuss. And somewhere, in a different city, in a different building's lobby next to a plant too proud to drink tap water, a white box will sit with a ribbon tied ugly and honest. A maintenance man will carry it to the back. He will set it on a shelf near a broom. He will knock 3 times on the handle out of habit, pause, and knock 3 times more because he likes rhythm. He will leave before the ribbon loosens on its own with a tiny sigh. You will hear stories about strings. Most will be nonsense. Some will be warnings disguised as jokes. A few will be receipts, I tied it back. I closed the lid. I returned what was not mine. I learned to clap once and mean it. If you find yourself in a house where breath matches breath too often, where a mirror begs to be believed, where a child stands very still because staying is more polite than speaking, set chairs in a circle. Say we choose. Lower your hand when you want to, not when a beat asks you to. And if a marionette comes in a white cardboard box with a ribbon tied like a secret, love the person who sent it, and then learn to love the person you become when you untie it only long enough to tie it back. Good return is a phrase with teeth. What you return returns you. What you keep keeps you. Choose. Clap once. Make breakfast. The house will listen.